James Dunn here from CJDC-TV. You know, it's by-election time here in Fort St. John, and we're taking a look at all 5 of the candidates that are eyeing for your vote in this month's by-election on May 15th. This week, it's a little bit different. I know we're not in our usual place of Festival Plaza for this turnaround, but there's a very good reason for that. Today, it is Jon Gosselin. He's joining me via Zoom. Jon, nice to meet you virtually, at least.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, James.
Perfect. Yeah, John, I know you were feeling a little bit under the weather, so that's why we couldn't do an on-camera one in front of Festival Plaza. But still, really good to hear. Really good to just sit down, get to know you a little bit, and ask a few questions. Let's just first get underway and just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, Jon Gosselin, born and raised here in Fort St. John, 1983. My parents were Paul and Linda Gosselin. A lot of the residents might know who they are. I got a wife, 3 young daughters, and my whole purpose is just to help people out. So whatever that might be, whether it's volunteering with the Phoenix Volunteer Club or whether it's running the caremongering that I've been doing the last year and a bit now through COVID and whatnot. That's basically who I am in a nutshell. I've had quite a few different careers here in Fort St. John. Was managing the wholesale club grocery department for a couple of years, worked in this steel industry, been working in transport now for 10 years. So I've had quite a wide variety of different experiences. You know, who I am basically, I'm the kind of guy that just likes the simple life.
You're very active on social media. You comment, you post. I believe you even share council meetings when they go live on Facebook. So how important is that community activism to you? Not just outside. I mean, we're not really gathering anymore because of COVID, but online on Facebook and on social media. How important is that? Is being active, at least on social media, important to you and your ability to run for city council?
Well, it's massive. I mean, right now, obviously, we can't meet in person, so that makes communicating very difficult. And right now, I mean, if COVID has done one thing in my eyes, it's opened a lot of doors for ways for us to use social media to our advantage, where we can reach more people. I mean, when I watch the live events, I just was watching the committee of the whole meeting here just before we logged in, and there was 13, 14 people on, and we have 22,000 people in our city. So that shows me that there's not a lot of engagement between council and community members, and engagement's so important because my thoughts are, my personal opinion should not matter more than yours or anyone else's in this town, right? And I, as a person, should not be speaking for you or others. We all should be speaking for ourselves and what we want and what we wish to see. But if we don't know that these council meetings are happening, if we aren't engaged, then we're not winning as a community, right? And I look at the younger generation too. I see people like my parents and other people older than myself. They're very engaged in what goes on in politics. They're very engaged in what goes on in town, in our province, in our community. And it's very, very seldom do you see people, in their early 20s getting politically engaged in things. So that's one of the things that I want to strive for, is making sure that our next generation is watching, they're engaging, they're getting involved, because the only way to build a great community is for everyone in the community to be personally involved.
And with your experience in workplaces and your volunteer experience, what about that experience makes you qualified more than your opponents for this position?
Well, I don't know if it makes me more qualified than my opponents, but in my personal opinion, it's important in my aspect, that a counselor, if I wasn't running right now, I would want my candidates to have that volunteer experience, to be out in the community, making the world a better place, you know, whether it's shopping for people, whether it's, you know, getting donations for people who are in need, things like that are important. You know, we often look at middle class and the upper class, but very seldomly does people who are in poverty get looked at. You know, they're seldomly forgotten or left behind. And I, you know, grew up in a house where my father passed away when I was 10, and my mom had to work 3 jobs just to pay the bills. And, you know, you get tired of seeing people have to go through life, you know, just to pay the bills. So I want to see things get better in that aspect. As for work, I mean, I work in the transportation industry. I run my own little company. So having that bit of business aspect of things like that helps me understand how taxes work and how this and that works. I, again, managed in a wholesale club for a couple of years. I did that when I was 19. So I was very young at the time. And, you know, I worked at the wholesale club for a couple of years before that. They put me in the management position, and I learned a lot about building teams and, you know, dealing with loss prevention and dealing with hiring and firing and training and just managing groups of people from, you know, 18 all the way up to 50. So I had the opportunity to learn from that. And then, of course, you know, I worked in the steel industry, which taught me a lot about how the trades works around here. So that gives me a bit of knowledge, obviously not as much as I would say Jim. Jim's obviously very heavily in the trade. So, but I hope that, you know, with all that various background, that I have the ability, that people see that I have the ability to manage multiple different aspects. You know, I'm not just one focused jar. I've had my fingers in everything, so I know a bit about how everything works.
And I guess my last 2 questions would be, what's your message to voters, and what is the one thing that you think makes you stand out? What's the one thing that makes you unique compared to your opponents?
Well, what I can say to voters is just get out, vote. I mean, you know, whether you vote for me or you vote for the other 4 candidates, you just got to vote. I mean, this is the one moment in our lives where we get to, as citizens, decide the future of our communities, our provinces, our countries. And it's not something that I believe should be wasted, you know, and it's not, I have been voting now since I turned 18, and I'll vote until I'm dead, because I think it's the one most important aspect that we can have, right? It's our democratic process. It's everything. I mean, it's just everything, right? I would say I'm not a politician. I don't believe in being conservative. I don't believe in being liberal or being an NDP or any of that kind of stuff. I like to consider myself a free thinker. And with that, I like to say that there's things that I see from all parties that work well for our country. There's all things that everybody can add to our communities. And I think a lot of the progress gets lost when we start saying, well, if it's not a conservative idea, it doesn't work, or if it's not a liberal idea, it doesn't work, when every single person has ideas that benefit us, and we just got to start focusing less on the divided politics and focus on, you know, us as community members, you know, us as citizens. We're the ones that pay the bills for them to have jobs. So we should not have to sit there and be divided. We should all be expecting similar or the same things.
Yeah, and I guess I'll probably just have to leave it there. But first of all, John, thank you for talking about us, talking about you, and talking about your message. And hopefully you found a lot good found this conversation very informative. If you have any questions to John or any of the other candidates, we're having an all candidates forum on May 3rd from 7 until 8:30, and it'll be live streamed right here on CJDC-TV's Facebook page. So send in your questions to peacenews@bellmedia.ca, and who knows, maybe your question will get answered. But first of all, another thank you to Jon Gosselin for joining me. John, really great conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
No problem.
Have a great day.